Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lincoln Coaching Podcast. I'm here with Nate Zinsser, Dr. Nate Zinsser, who is director of West Point's Performance Enhancement Program and also author of a book that I'm a huge fan of called The Confident Mind. How are you doing, Nate?
Good morning, Chris. It's delightful to be with you, and I'm looking forward to this hour.
The first thing I thought about when I was looking at your book and we had this podcast prepared was the question that came to mind was like, what makes you confident?
What makes me confident about me?
Yeah.
Well, I like to think that I practice most of the things that I preach. So what makes me confident is a fairly consistently constructive thought process. I hang on to the memories of things that give me reasons to believe that I can be healthy, happy, and successful in the future. I'm very careful about the stories that I tell myself about myself. I'm this, I'm that, I can do this, I can do that.
Yep.
And I'm careful about making sure that when I think about various possible futures, I try to limit the production of those various video clips and movies to ones that, are kind of fulfilling. So I'm trying to live my own life carefully. I'm trying to live my own mental life rather carefully. And that's what I encourage all my various clients, whether they are sportsmen, businessmen, artists, medical doctors, police officers, firefighters, to do as well.
It's really interesting thinking about all the techniques that you talk about. How much resource do you put into it? Like, how much time does it take up on like a daily basis? Because there's lots of techniques in there. And one of the things I think about is like, where do I like invest my time significantly here, and where do I do like 5 minutes there? Do you think it's a case of like the more you put in, the more you'll get out of it?
I think that's very true, especially at the start. Anyone reading my book or anyone, coming to me for coaching, is going to get a prescription. Okay. You got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do this other thing. Not altogether different from, going to a counselor or going to a medical doctor who is going to say, yeah, you need to eat these foods or take these vitamins or do these exercises. I will say that once you get in the habit of practicing these things, they take less time and less time and less time because you start doing them naturally and automatically. And instead of, I have to sit down and think about how I want my next performance review to go, or I have to sit down and really think about how I want this particular sales negotiation to go, or how I want this procedure in the operating room to go. At some point, you just think about all those things constructively, just naturally, intuitively, automatically. And that's when I know the work has really established itself, and that's what we strive for. So, yeah, you might have to spend 5, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes every day doing some specific journaling, reflective work, doing some envisioning of future, and there's an investment of time and energy. But you'll find if you keep it up, and this has very much been the situation with long-term clients of mine, it just becomes the way you are.
It's like it becomes like anything, right? The more you practice it, the more natural you start to do things. It's like, I think, you make reference to like learning an instrument, for example, which I resonate with because I'm a musician. And the more that you do it, the more you kind of bypass that conscious thought. I know you talk about the kind of the journey of what kind of confidence is. It's like, and part of it's bypassing that conscious thought about it. And you give this wonderful example of like, if you're walking down the stairs and you're thinking too much about, what your feet are doing, where they're going to land and what your legs are doing, it's pretty likely you're going to fall down those stairs and tumble down, right?
But exactly.
we don't even think about that anymore. We just go down the stairs, and that's kind of what you're proposing in your book, isn't it? It's that confidence, like building confidence and having the confidence ready in the moments where they matter should be like walking down the stairs to you. You should be so comfortable with it.
Exactly.
Right?
I love your example of learning to play something new on a musical instrument.
Yeah.
At first you have to be very careful and stepwise about it, and you have to take each finger to each fret or each key on the keyboard. With a little bit of time, though, eventually that pattern just becomes ingrained into your nervous system, and that pattern repeats itself with the easiest and subtlest of cues.
Yep.
So in that way, your ability to play a song or to play a movement or to play, a particular style of music just becomes, automatic and intuitive. And that's when it becomes very special, both to you, the player, and to the listener.
I think that's really interesting. And that certainly resonates to my origins. I'd be really interested in understanding your origins a bit, Nate. So what inspired you to write The Confident Mind?
What inspired me to write The Confident Mind, Chris, was really just the number of people who kept coming to me, especially, very highly motivated, very disciplined and committed young men and women, cadets at the United States Military Academy. Hardworking people, they're up every day at 5:30 and they're working till past midnight, and they've got a very demanding academic curriculum and a very demanding leadership training curriculum, and many of them are also at the top level of American intercollegiate athletic competition. And so many of them would just walk into my office and say, "Gosh, I seem to have lost all my confidence." And I'm saying, "Well, that's interesting. You did rather well in secondary school. I'm looking at the stat sheet from your last season or from your secondary school experience, and wow, you're kind of an impressive individual." And I say, "Yeah, I just don't feel like I can be successful or be impactful or play the way I know I can play at the moment." So we have to understand what confidence is, and we got to take some concrete action to, build it up, and then make sure that we can express it, the next time they have to take the test or play in the game or match.
What I think is really interesting about that is it reminds me of when you're fairly at the beginning of the book, you talk about the busting the myths essentially of confidence. Can you share what those are? Because I think that was really refreshing to me to understand what some of those myths were. But I'm sure you
Yeah,
can articulate them better than I.
I deal with several of them. I'll start off with the first. The idea that confidence is a dispositional, genetically driven quality that you either have or you don't have. Some of these people coming into my office are saying, "Gosh, I guess I just don't have it. I guess I just don't have what it takes." That's a misconception. Confidence is a skill more than anything else. It's not an inherited disposition. It's not something that you are born with a certain amount of and can't do anything about. No, it's a skill. You can build it with practice. It grows with attention and practice, and it erodes with neglect, just like anything else. Secondly, the idea is that confidence might be some, all-encompassing quality that you have across the board in every facet of your life. No. Confidence is very situation specific. You can be extremely confident in a given course in your academic day and very fearful in another one. You can be very confident about your serving volley game as a tennis player, but very uncomfortable with your backhand down there at the baseline. it's very situation specific. The good news is that you can develop confidence in any aspect of your life that you choose to. You just have to think effectively about that activity. So those are two big ones. Probably the biggest misconception is the confusion between success and confidence. The idea that, as soon as I get some success, then I'll be confident. And the idea is that, well, I can't possibly be confident until I get a whole lot of success. And I share some case studies in the book of individuals who had remarkable success when looked at objectively. But the individual who had achieved said success did not linger on it, take it in, internalize it. Instead, those individuals were thinking about all the things that they didn't do well, which was, objectively a minority of their actions. It just goes to show that it's not about success. It's about how you think about your success, the degree to which you internalize all your various successes. Now you flip that coin over with the idea that if you experience a setback or a loss or a failure, then automatically your confidence has to plummet. Well, that's true only if you let it. There are stories of people who have experienced considerable setbacks. Statistically or objectively, the majority of their experience has been negative. But they are able to hang on to the memories and to the visions of their relatively few and far between successes and victories and improvements. And if they can keep their mind just on those thoughts and memories, they maintain a great sense of confidence, a great sense of certainty about themselves. So it's not what happens to you, it's how you think about what happens to you. It's a matter of which of your experiences you give the greatest emotional power to and how you react to your up moments and your down moments. Everybody has free will and can control that. You just have to exercise it.
You just have to practice. I think that's a really good summary because it makes me think about happiness in a way and how similar that is, in the sense that you can really compare it to the weather, right? Is that sometimes a rain cloud will just come, sometimes it'll be sunny, and it depends on how you deal with that
Right.
ultimately impacts the way you deal with it in the future. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It is a choice that you make about your state of mind. It's raining again. This is awful. Well, no, it's going to make sure that the water table stays high and things are going to grow, and I'll just, put the right clothing on and I'll be fine. Walking, riding, doing whatever I have to do outdoors. A wise person once said, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's just improper clothing.
I think it's interesting what some of the criticisms that people get if they're optimistic, idealistic. But one of the things I drew from your book was actually it's really good to be optimistic. It's really good to be idealistic, because being realistic only gets you so far.
Very, very true. Being quote unquote realistic.
Yeah.
If you look carefully at it, if you ask someone to unpack all their quote unquote realistic thoughts,
yeah,
they all tend to be rather negative and pessimistic. So
I agree.
The label realistic is very often a cover-up for a lot of self-criticism and negativity. Now, to be perfectly fair, some of that self-criticism is warranted.
Sure.
I may not indeed have the cardiovascular fitness that is required for my sport or my, overall health. Okay, I don't have it. Now, am I going to beat myself up for, gosh, what's the matter with you? You're such a jerk. You should really be taking care of a bit of yourself. Or are you going to say, okay, I don't have the cardiovascular fitness. What do I really want? How do I go about it? And you allow yourself to be not just your own critic, but you allow yourself to be your own best, most honest, most encouraging friend,
Yeah.
If your friend said, oh gosh, I've been in such terrible shape, boy, I'm a real jerk. You say, no. Hey, pal, you can do this. All you got to do is, put the shoes on and hit the road.
Yeah.
How about talking to yourself the same way you would talk to that good friend?
Yeah.
It's really a matter of that. So yes, sure, there's a time and a place for criticism, and there's a time and a place for some honest analysis. Here's what I did well. Here's what I did poorly. What can I learn from that? And now what am I going to do about it? But it all has to be couched, or it all has to be framed within a larger umbrella of optimism. We can go forward. Optimism is built into our species. It was a very important survival mechanism, back during our primitive hunter-gatherer days, which was the vast majority of our existence on this planet. We all have that capability. Sometimes we sort of let that capability go. Sometimes we, just choose to ignore it. But it's there in us, and we can all choose to embrace it.
It makes me think about what Peterson wrote in 12 Rules for Life. Have you read that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very articulate man. I did struggle with that one a little bit, I'll be honest. But one of the rules he talks about is, looking after someone looking after yourself as if you're responsible for that person, right? And I think people are really, well, certainly the people I speak to a lot are quite judgmental of themselves and have these expectations of perfection. And it can drive a lot of anxiety. I think it can also is one of the main causes for imposter syndrome, because of the lack of perfection that we have, and a lot of the content we're exposed to is people in a perfect scenario, or in their most successful, greatest image that they could possibly be in, that's been edited, and or they've just won something, and it can make you think of what have I done? What can I do? And that negative voice kind of kicks in, right, and starts kind of saying, okay, you need to do better. Do you think that there's a link to a lack of confidence and that kind of anxiety in the imposter syndrome?
Oh, without question. It sounds like you have a lot of the same people coming to you as I have coming to me.
Yeah.
That constant comparison to some idealized standard, which can be, in many cases, completely unrealistic. I remember very clearly on this very topic, my professor at the University of Virginia, Bob Rotella, who's made quite a name for himself mentoring professional golfers around the world. He would describe this in terms of, look at the cover of all the magazines. This is especially appropriate to young women. On the cover of the magazine is a photograph of typically a woman, who is a genetic freak, just in terms of her organic facial structure, body structure. She is a genetic freak, very rare. And that genetic abnormality has sat in a makeup studio for hours.
Yeah.
With the best hair and makeup and stylist people on the planet to create something that you would not see just walking down the street. You create something that is, very much idealized. And then she gets in front of the camera, and they click the pictures and click the pictures and click the pictures. And then they take the pictures and Photoshop them a little bit and edit those photos so that the cheekbones do this and the eyebrows do this and and so it you started out with something very unusual and rare. You amplified it in the makeup room. You amplified it again in the editing studio once you have the photos, and then you put that on the cover of the magazine. That's what people are supposed to look like. It creates a ridiculous standard.
Yeah, it does.
And it's all too easy for us in this media-driven world to fall victim to that. Oh, I should look like her. I should look like him. I should have that kind of life that somebody constantly refers to on their social media page.
Yep.
Almost
Absolutely.
nobody puts stuff on their social media feeds about, I'm having a really bad day today. Everybody says, oh, yes, here I am at this vacation spot, and here I am with a pina colada in my hand or this wonderful meal in front of me, and I'm with all my friends, and life is great.
Yeah.
That gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's very, very common where people are going to say, well, geez, my life isn't like that.
Yeah.
What's the matter with me?
Yeah.
And that unrealistic comparison just provokes the perfectionism, and it provokes the negativity to the point where, as you pointed out, people feel they're an imposter. No, you're not the imposter. Those ridiculous, unrealistic standards that you are exposed to, those are the imposters. That's the fake. You are true.
I love that. And what would you say to the idea of, people want to be authentic. A lot of the people I speak to, authenticity is quite important to them. But at the same time, online presence, they have to compete to be recognized, to be considered for opportunities. What do you think? What kind of advice would you give to people who are kind of trying to figure that out, trying to navigate that situation where it's like, well, I want to be myself, but do I need to create a version of me that's not particularly real to actually get the types of opportunities that I'd love to get?
Well, my naive advice for everybody is to be true to your own core values. What really matters? And then communicate that honestly and genuinely. I think you have to let your good qualities stand for you rather than try to make up something so that somebody else will approve of you. We have a very interesting situation here in the States of a man who was elected to the United States Congress back in November.
Yeah.
And just a couple months later, it was discovered that he had lied about where he went to college. He had lied about the jobs he had had. He had lied about his family background, his family history. His entire claim to fame and legitimacy was completely false. I am idealistic and optimistic enough, Chris, to believe that, if you base yourself on lies and fabrications and half-truths, that's going to come out eventually. And people are going to see you for the fraud that you have become. Why don't you just be honest about yourself, be true to yourself, decide what's important. If you need to work, practice, study to develop competency in any particular area, go ahead and do that. And as you develop that competency, acknowledge it to yourself. Take pride in it. Yes, now I know this. Now I can accomplish that. Yes, I now can run 5 miles in, 40 minutes. Or I can indeed qualify for the Boston Marathon or the London Marathon because I have put in the work. So it really comes, to me, so much of this comes down to honesty. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think it's almost a little bit contradictory to some of the affirmations techniques that you have to say, right? Because you essentially have to believe in the thing that you want to be able to do that you don't know you can do yet. And what I think is really interesting about this is that a lot of people are really convinced by the negative lies that essentially come into their head, right? That voice, but the idea of, okay, why don't you just try making it an encouraging thought of something that you'd love to be able to do, feels like the wrong thing. It almost feels like you're betraying yourself, but you're actually opening yourself up to become the thing that you want to be. And you talk about self-fulfilling prophecies in your book as well. And it's like, well, if you keep practicing these affirmations, and I'd love for you to kind of give some like of your top examples, by the way, that is what can encourage you and propel you into the success that you're envisioning.
Absolutely. As you pointed out, some of the criticism about using affirmations is that you're just fooling yourself. But the truth of the matter is that you're telling yourself affirmations all the time.
Yep.
It's just a question of which ones you're using and whether those are consistent with how you want to be in this world. If you have this running chain of thought about, oh, I never get that right, or I always mess up in these situations. Hello, that's an affirmation. You are just defining yourself. If you, on the other hand, use a thought like, I am successful in these situations. That may not be true at the moment, but it is at least encouraging you to act in a certain way so that outcome does indeed become more likely. You have to be very careful about how you think. We are all telling ourselves stories about ourselves all the time.
All the time.
I can do this. I can't do that. I don't have time for this. I can't fit that in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list is endless.
Yep.
We just have to be honest. Are you telling yourself a story about yourself that you're happy with, that you want to be true continually? Because the stories that you're telling yourself now may be based upon your past experience. So in that sense, they're true. But what's also happening is that from this moment forward, that thought is not the result of an experience. That thought is the cause of a future experience. Now, What's the experience that you want to have? Let's affirm that. Let's say yes to that. That changes the way we use our energy. And it gives you an opportunity. Not a guarantee, but at least it puts a little more, it puts better cards in your poker hand. Or as we say as we would say in any military organization, oh, that's another couple clips of ammunition on your belt. You might need it.
That's awesome. Can you tell me what what affirmations do you use yourself, Nate, and what are ones that you've found to be particularly effective with your clients that they've said, okay, I tried this out, Doc, and I love these?
Well, every client is unique.
Yeah.
Every client comes up with their own. I give them suggestions, one that I often suggest to people is the statement, I am in the best shape of my life and I love it. Well, am I in the best shape of my life? Maybe not. Do I want to be in the best shape of my life? Okay. So that's one that I've used with many individuals. Most of the other ones are highly situation specific, highly specific to a particular academic discipline or sport discipline or profession. In terms of so many people in the business world who are involved in negotiating and selling, a thought such as, I easily find common ground with all of my customers. That has a lot of generality to it. That can apply to a lot of people. There's some other, I guess, more physically based affirmations for people, for sports people who are working on their, working on their physical fitness, strength, speed, cardiovascular efficiency, flexibility. The phrase, "I enjoy working hard every day. It brings me fulfillment." That's a general one that applies across the board for a lot of people. Most of the other ones, Chris, are very specific to the sport that you play, the position in the sport that you play, or the profession that you're working in.
So can you give me an example of that in, say, the field of someone who's maybe a sales director?
Well, sure. I can pull out half a dozen folders and give you all kinds of things.
Like a really specific one that you're talking about.
Sure.
I recognize that you've done them in your book. Sorry, go on.
I am clear and concise in communicating to my sales team. There's one. I have great enthusiasm for my product and my delivery. Those are just a couple. I have a magnetic personality that easily connects with all of my customers. Does the individual truly have a magnetic personality? Maybe, maybe not. But as you affirm it, you are more likely to manifest it, as opposed to the ongoing thought, maybe I'm just too quiet for this job. Maybe I'm not extroverted enough. You're either going to be telling yourself, I communicate clearly, I find common ground, I have great enthusiasm to develop my team, and I have great enthusiasm for the help that my products can make in the world. One of my clients is a neurosurgeon who is also the CEO of a company that is developing a brain cancer treatment. Currently, there is no treatment for human brain cancer, but his company has developed a technology, and it is undergoing clinical trials right now here in the United States.
Amazing.
And so he is very affirmational about what this technology can do. And the more he feeds himself with those affirmational thoughts, the more energized he is to stay to really stay on top of the clinical trials as they are running, to look for more opportunities. So, there's a concrete example of someone who is very enthusiastic. I have something that can save lives. My product is very useful for the world.
So I really love the example that you gave in your book about there was a lady who had to get pulled into a pitch in front of all the VPs, and she was talking about the kind of physiological responses to the situation, and I love the kind of reinterpretation of what's happening with nerves. And I've talked about this with a few of my people in my network about how you discuss almost how like the nervous system's been completely misjudged.
True.
Can you talk a bit more about that? Because I think that's going to help a lot of people understand.
Let's start with some human physiological facts. We as animals are designed, equipped, engineered to experience a biochemical change of arousal, a rise in our energy level, when we are about to engage in something of importance. And it can be important because we desire to do it. We desire to win a football match. Or it can be something that is important because we must perform in it, like taking a required chemistry exam or producing a required research paper. So when it comes time to take that test or play in that match, our nervous system is going to tell various glands in our body, hey, produce some chemicals that release more energy because we need it now. And that's basically the message. And the body's wisdom is wonderful about this, and it will secrete chemicals into the bloodstream that will get back to the heart, and the heartbeat will elevate, the blood pressure will rise, the muscles will tingle a little bit in anticipation of action, the pupils will dilate. And these physiological changes can feel a little odd because we don't experience them necessarily all that often. We experience them when we are excited about something, and we also experience them when we are sort of apprehensive about something.
Sure.
So when you're about to do something that is important, you have the choice to say, oh gosh, I'm really apprehensive, and my body is acting odd. Or you have the choice to say, I'm really excited. Look how odd my body is acting, because the underlying physiology is very much the same.
Yes.
It's just a question of the narrative that you attach to it, the interpretation that you say to it. It can be 5 minutes before the soccer match begins, and you can be thinking, oh gosh, I'm so nervous. Or you can be thinking, oh gosh, I'm so excited to go out there and move the ball, create opportunities, maybe even put one in. So we have to understand that the body is designed to elevate. New biochemistry. I encourage people to think of it as, rocket fuel, high test fuel that you're now working on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how experienced you are in your sport or your activity. This is just built into our biology. It's going to happen.
And you should take advantage of it.
So take advantage of it. Expect it to happen.
Yeah.
Embrace it when it does happen. Okay, here it is. I'm getting the butterflies in my stomach because all those millions of nerve endings in my very sensitive stomach lining are being stimulated by this overall change in arousal. And so I'm feeling something odd in my stomach. Okay, well, that means I am now in this enhanced biochemical state, which is going to facilitate a good speech, a good race, a good performance on the stage, a good delivery of the, Handel concerto on the piano. It's going to help me. It's going to energize me. So you have to appreciate that your body does this, expect it to happen, and when it happens, welcome it. Be grateful for it. Say thank you. And then you have that little sort of private grin. I've got something special going for myself. and you can enter the match or the test or the performance with a higher degree of confidence and certainty about a good outcome because you are now more energized to deliver it.
Absolutely. And I think what's really good for people to know is that the top 1% of performers do this, right?
That's so important to recognize. Go ahead and ask the best football players, the best tennis players, the best at anything. And they'll tell you, well, of course I get, quote unquote, nervous.
Yeah.
Or they might even say, I really don't get nervous, but I sure as heck get excited. It's the same thing. Okay. They have learned that this state of arousal is productive. It's helpful. They look forward to it. They want that rush, that surge of energy, that strange feeling on the day of the match, the day of the tournament. They want that. They understand that it is part of being a great performer. They understand that it's going to help them. So they've learned to look forward to it. And if you read their biographies and autobiographies, you will find some description of how and when they understood this to be the case. I finally realized that when I was preparing for Wimbledon, or when I was walking into Wembley Stadium for the very first time, I finally realized, hey, this is how I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
This is great. I hope I never lose this.
Definitely. I think because that's one of the things that essentially puts you at a competitive edge, is being able to, like you said, using that enhanced biological state to be able to perform, to be able to do something really great. And I think, I mean, my opinion is, I don't have the science on this, but my opinion of this is one of the reasons that this is a really common misconception, probably now more than ever, is because of a lot of anxiety in people when, I mean, I don't know what it is. A lot of people who I speak to talk about how it's a lot to do with social media. It's a lot of, like, digestion of content without actually processing it, and constantly being exposed to information, feeling like they have to constantly do something. And some of my clients are incredible. The things they do from, like, when they woke up to what they go to sleep is phenomenal. But sometimes I tell them, okay, you might actually need to, like, just put some, like, 5 minutes meditation in there just to process everything you've learned. I've got one client who literally plugs in his headphones while he's working all day and just goes through books and books and books and books and books and Audible. And I said to him, when do you, like, take the time to actually reflect on what you've learned? And he was like, well, never, because I need to keep going. And I wonder if, like, well, I sense that we can distinguish between, or it's important for people to distinguish between, when they're standing in line at maybe the post office and this sudden biological state starts to happen, compared to when they're about to do something that's around their ambition or around their passion. So I guess one of the things I was thinking about, one thing I'd love to know from you, Nate, is what kind of advice do you have to those people who do get into this biological state of anxiety in situations where maybe it's not required of their body necessarily, and therefore have all these kind of negative experiences, so that when it comes to the similar biochemistry, when they need it, and in a good scenario, how do they turn that into a good thing, that experience into a good thing, and perhaps maybe not freak out as much when it happens and there's nothing to actually worry about?
Yeah, what you're really referring to is saving your body's energy, your body's special energies, for the moments when it can actually help you out. If you're standing in line at the post office, well, you're really blessed with an opportunity just to breathe slowly, drop your shoulders, and if you want to think about anything at all, think about something great happening tomorrow or next week. Think about the person you love the most. Think about a moment in your life that has brought you great satisfaction and fulfillment. And isn't it great you have a little, it could be a minute, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 15 seconds. You've got this opportunity just to be with the best parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. If you operate 24/7, go, 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 go. The example you give of the fellow who's working and listening to audiobooks at the same time is remarkable. I would think that poor fellow would be very tired at the end of the day.
You'd think so. He's actually an incredible guy. He's going to be coming on the podcast at some point. But he shared a story with me of, essentially started a window cleaning business, and he managed to put the most positive spin on that type of labor that I've ever heard. And he said, Chris, the reason I love it is because it's so mundane and requires so little of my thought that I can just spend the entire day listening to audiobooks and learning about things I really want to learn about.
That is a fascinating perspective.
And he's so smart now. That
is a fascinating perspective. I just hope the guy does shut down at times and really rests his brain. Otherwise, if he keeps firing, basically the stress response. If he keeps firing that, other priorities for his body will not receive the attention they deserve.
Yeah. like, this is what I tried to explain to him. I was like, it will catch up as well. And you need your mind to have some meditation, essentially. Do you do meditation or yoga, Nate?
Oh, yes. I learned the transcendental meditation technique in 1971 when I was a mere lad of 16.
Wow.
I have been a lifetime martial arts student since I was 18. So I was exposed to more breath-oriented meditation techniques, which I continue to practice to this day. So I really look forward to the 5 minutes here and there when I can put my body in a state of stillness, repeat a simple, comforting thought, and shift my emotional state to one of gratitude and appreciation. Everybody can do that.
Yeah. It's
I
just
highly
practicing it.
recommend everybody finding their own little way of doing that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people put off meditation because it just is one of those things that's like, it's not super easy to get into in this modern world because we're always thinking so much. And again, I think because the content we're always digesting, so like to sit, we're always glued to our phone. Well, a lot of people are. I try not to be as much as possible. And I teach all my clients, when they're improving their routine, for example, that the first thing they do, whatever they do, is not to look at their phone and to go through the notifications, because I think so many people do that and you can spend ages just scrolling, right? And I think because we are constantly have these like racing thoughts or thinking about something or want to pursue success, like we're encouraged to, that the idea of sitting down and doing nothing is so challenging to even start, right? Let alone sitting there and continuing to do it. I remember the first time I did it and I was like fidgety. I couldn't stop being distracted. And it took a lot of guided meditation before I could get to unguided. But I think unguided is such a beautiful exercise to be able to do, being able to really plug into the world. One of the things I tell my clients to do is like each day, just like soak in the world, like just ignore your phone, ignore the TV, just go outside and just look at things and just like soak in the colors, soak in the sound, soak in the feel. Because I think we're too in the modern world, certainly people are generally too attached to content and mobile devices that they neglect or take for granted or even struggle with the idea of doing nothing.
I heartily agree. Anybody, there's the old joke, what do you call somebody who takes a 10-minute nap in the afternoon? The answer is a kindergartner. Only a little tiny kid needs that. I'm grown up. I'm supposed to go all day. I'm supposed to have the intestinal fortitude to push through fatigue. Thankfully, the United States Army has realized that this is a formula for mediocrity. And so
Definitely.
Rest is actually being prioritized in many situations.
How much rest?
We have to tell our cadets, look, sleep is a non-negotiable factor in your life. You need to be as diligent about setting your alarm clock to go to bed as you are about setting your alarm clock to get up in the morning. And if that means you disconnect from social media entirely, that's a pretty tall order for an 18 to 22-year-old in this day and age. If it means you have to disconnect, then you have to disconnect. If you can't disconnect completely, you better be putting that thing away.
Yeah.
Because you got to get your, thermodynamic problem set done because it's due tomorrow. You got to get it done. And then you got to get to bed.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to minimize, lessen the things that are just nice, convenient, but really not essential. And let's face it, so much of social media, so much of our digitally driven world is non-essential. We did fine without it. I'm not saying everybody throw away your cell phones. I'm just saying use them when you need to and understand what you're doing when you constantly distract yourself by going back to your news feed or your Facebook page or whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
All right.
It is. I think it is a bit about balance, because smartphones are an incredible device. Like, we're essentially carrying around supercomputers in our pocket, right?
Right.
And we're paying more for our phones than our laptops in many cases. And there are some really good things, because I tested this. I did like a week without a smartphone, and I bought a really old Nokia that just had Snake on it and could only call and text. It had no apps. And I found myself like trying to figure out how to get to certain places when I got in my car, and I had no idea how to like properly read a map because I got so used to Google Maps. and the idea of being able to like WhatsApp people, and just, if someone needed an answer to a question, just being able to Google it, I'd be like, I have to sit here and not know this, and I have to like not look it up. And it made me realize that there are definitely some uses for it, but also we shouldn't be glued to it as much as we are. And I think it's quite terrible, really, how a lot of companies develop these applications with the intention of keeping people on them as long as possible, like making them as addictive as possible. I think it's really bad. And I think we're probably at a stage now, like as parents, like, well, I'm a parent myself, where I kind of see what's happening. I'm really scared of it when my son gets old enough to whatever it's going to be, whatever the technology is going to be, that's going to be so good, of how to kind of moderate that. But I think the less that we are exposed to reality, and the more time we spend in the virtual world, takes away our competence from the reality, because we're not actually getting the practice of like what it feels like in real life to do something. And people who spend ages, like, I don't know, playing like FIFA or a football game or something, and they'd love to be a footballer, but they're so addicted to this game, it's almost like a waste, because you think they could, if they actually went out and played it, and got out of their comfort zone and got out in the cold and walk, started to like lose some weight and get on the pitch and start to become, good at that sport, they'd be fulfilling a potential passion of theirs. But because it's so easy to live that perspective virtually, it's easier to get attached to that and think, okay, I really care about being good at this game rather than good at the sport in say real life. Do you experience that? Do you encounter that a bit?
Oh, all the time. There's a choice to make. Do we actually want to live in the world, or do we want to live in a virtual representation of the world? It's a very interesting philosophical question.
It is, isn't it? And I think some people would probably say a virtual, as much as, because
okay.
they have.
If that is your choice, and if you're making that choice with full awareness of what you're gaining and what you're losing, okay, that's your choice. It's not a choice I would make.
Me neither. What I mean by that is I think that because some people are taking, maybe not taking things for, like, aren't grateful, aren't expressing that gratitude, aren't experiencing reality and real conversations and real face-to-face communication. I know we're doing today virtual, but you're on the other side of the planet, so maybe one day. But I think it's for some people, like, who are in maybe a bit of a tough place, they'd much rather sit on their phone or play a game than to experience life, because they don't actually
than to actually experience life.
Yeah.
I hope that trend can sort of peak out and maybe decrease a little bit. A friend of mine, one of the ladies that I profile in the book, uses the phrase, life is not about how many breaths you take. Life is about how many things you experience that take your breath away.
I love that. That's
So,
amazing.
just something as simple as watching a sunrise or watching a sunset. Uh, we can open ourselves up to these experiences. We're not really going to have breathtaking experiences plugged into social media.
No,
I
exactly.
think we're going to have breathtaking experiences in the real flesh and blood world.
100%. Yeah. So I guess like the one thing that we would kind of take away from this is live life in the real. Maybe spend less time on your phone.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, mate, is have you heard of ambiverts?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you've got introverted people and then extroverted people. Ambiverted people are allegedly people who dance between the two. So they can go from like, and I probably associate with an ambivert more than anything else, because I feel like I can be really energetic and have really great conversations with my friends, but then I become a little bit exhausted after doing that day after day, that I need a day to myself. I need some time to just recharge the batteries. I don't want to socialize as much. And then I'm charged up. I can go and I can have that kind of extrovert style life in my life. I love what you say about confidence when it comes to this, because there's a lot of false insights about how extroverted people might be a bit more confident than introverted. Can you touch on this? Because I'd love to talk about this, and I know you articulate it better than I.
Sure. I have known some very introverted people. They tend to be quiet. They're not all that sociable, but they have incredible confidence about themselves and their profession. I think we have a misconception that confident people are all loud and boastful and extroverted. It's not really the case. There are certainly some loud, extroverted, boastful people who indeed have great internal confidence. But there are just as many quiet, introverted people who have a great deal of internal certainty about their ability to play a sport, play an instrument, do a job, etc., etc. So we really have to make sure that we distinguish, boastfulness, outspoken arrogance with internal confidence. All right? Confidence is how you think on the inside. Now, whether you choose to be loud about it, well, that's a different story. The martial arts fighter Conor McGregor is a wonderful example of a guy who's just naturally outspoken about everything. And he talks about his training, and he talks about his fights, and he talks about his life, and everything comes out. Now, he has a great deal of confidence in himself. He also has this very outward, boastful personality. There are plenty of other individuals who have that same degree of internal confidence. They believe that they're really good at their profession or at their passion, but it would never occur to them to talk about it out loud. It's just not in their nature.
Like Khabib.
Yeah. So all of you introverted people listening today, okay, you can be really confident too. It's fine. You can be unbelievably confident, certain about yourself, trusting in your abilities, and at the same time be quiet, respectful, polite, which I'm sure is a good idea in a lot of situations. You can have them both. Okay.
I love that, because the thing is like we have this concept of what a confident person looks like, and I think you're right. A lot of the time, it is the person who's loud, because we're learning about their confidence, whereas people who are quiet, perhaps not sharing that confidence, we make the assumption maybe they're not as confident as the person who's talking about it a lot. But actually what we're saying is that there's not one type of confident person.
That's exactly. Everybody can be confident in their own way. It's just a matter of how you think about yourself. We all have that capability, and let's embrace it, and let's see where it can take us. That's probably a good message for us to end on today, Chris, because we could keep going forever.
I'm sure we could. No, Doc Z, it's been absolutely incredible having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming along today.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Chris. I wish you the best and all your listeners the best. Cultivate a confident mind, ladies and gentlemen, and let's see how that affects your life. Thanks again.